Hi, this is my Aunt Effie, and this is a place where I review books that I've read recently, usually, and then I talk to you about them, tell you a little bit about the book, tell you what I thought, and I'm interested in discussing the book, so if any of you have read these books, I want to hear about it. So, today I'm going to read or talk to you about another Stephen King book that I finished recently called The Skeleton Crew. Now, I read this book many years ago. It was published in 1985, and I loved it back then. So I found it in the library, reread it, and you know what? I still loved it. It was amazing. So, do you remember a story? Those of you who are Stephen King fans probably know The Fog. Well, I think The Fog was one of the most exciting stories I read back in the day, and I never got over it. It was just so good. And it is the first book, or the first short story in this collection. So, it was very fun to read it again. The Raft is in this collection, and if you know, The Raft was made into a movie, and it was not too bad. Some of Stephen King's stories that are made into movies are fabulous, and some are not as good. So I thought the Raft was pretty good. It was scary. So there's one in here called Uncle Otto's Truck. It's really good. And I remember all these stories. I remember reading them back in the 80s. So I guess I'll talk a little bit about The Fog. It was a story about a community that lived kind of out in the boonies. And on the other side of the lake, there was a military facility, and everybody in the community would talk about what they're doing out there, and there would be military people in the town buying their groceries and doing their shopping and living in the town, and sometimes they'd ask questions. They're kind of tight-lipped about it, but that just means that everybody's going to have all these crazy stories, right, about what's going on. So in The Fog, the hero and his wife and little boy are out there. It's a summer home situation. They're out there for the summer, and they see this crazy deep fog that starts on the other side of the lake, and it keeps coming closer. They also know that there is predicted a really big storm coming. So they've been getting ready for the storm, putting things away, doing those kinds of things. So Dad decides to go in for groceries. Little 5-year-old boy comes with him. Mom stays. She's doing some work in the garden. They notice that the fog is coming in closer and closer to the house, and it's a little bit worrisome, but fog. Don't change your life over some fog. So Dad, boy go into town, and they are in the parking lot. They end up getting a parking place right up in front by the store, which ends up being significant later. And the fog starts coming in to the parking lot of the grocery store while they're in there. It starts to get scary. There are two young men in military uniforms that do themselves in with ropes in the back room. They get found. So everybody's scared. Some people leave and go into the fog, and they just hear screams. Maybe some viscera gets thrown around. And there are things out in the fog. There are things out in the fog that want to come in. And it gets more and more scary as time goes on. And I won't spoil the story for you, but oh my gosh, it's so good. There's another story that is super scary called Gramma. And I don't know if any of you have ever been afraid of older people. And I'm an older person. I don't think I'm scary. But for young people, sometimes an older person can be scary, especially if you aren't around it very much. Our skin is different. Lots of things are different. The hair color's gone. Things are just not the way they are on your mom or your dad. So this is about a boy who is afraid of his grandma, and it turns out that it is for very good reason. So I won't tell you anymore, but Skeleton Crew is well worth reading. There's another story in there called The Reach, and it is up north where everything's really cold. There's an old woman who lives on an island, and sometimes the water between the island and the mainland will freeze all the way over in the winter. They call that The Reach. And she has never left the island. She was born on the island. She's never left. She is very old now, and she decides that she's going to walk the reach. And she dies. And this is a spoiler. But when they find her, she's wearing the hat that belonged to her deceased husband, because she got out there and she got cold. He showed up and she lost her hat in the wind, and he gave her his hat, and they left together. It's a beautiful story about passing on to the other side and what that might be like. So I loved it. What do I want to tell you? That's it, really. The book is wonderful. I absolutely loved it. It was such a wonderful trip down memory lane to read all those old stories again. I have been reading so much Stephen King lately, and I just can't get enough of it. I mean, I'm going to take a break pretty soon, but it's not easy because he has written a lot of books, and they are all so good, and I just love his style and the way he captures the audience. So tell me, have you read Skeleton Crew? When did you read it? Did you read it, a long time ago, or did you read it recently? What are your thoughts about it? All right, well, this is my Aunt Effie, and I just want to say goodbye and be happy and read something.